The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 13. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 13, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act proposing an amendment to the Minnesota Constitution, the first engrossment.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Kunesh Padin, to explain your bill.
Good afternoon, members. This is a bill that proposes a state constitution, a constitutional amendment that will prohibit denial of equality in the law on the basis of gender. This law would allow, or this bill, once it is passed, will allow a constitutional amendment after the question is on the ballot in 2020 for Minnesotans to decide if they would like to have the statement that equality under the law will not be abridged nor denied based on gender. And I would ask you all to vote green.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Scott moves to amend House File number 13, the first engrossment as follows, and the amendment is coded A7.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment would change the word gender to sex. And we had quite a lengthy discussion about this in committee. And we learned that there is no statutory definition in Minnesota law for the word gender. And if Minnesota passes this law with the word gender in it, we would be one of only, there's only one other state that has that word instead of sex, and that is Rhode Island. And they passed their ERA in 1986. And in 1986, the word gender had quite a different definition and quite a different connotation than it does today. And so in effort to make it abundantly clear to the public, if we're going to put out a constitutional amendment, and if this amendment is about not discriminating against women, that I believe this is the right word to use. So members, I would ask for your support on this amendment, and I would also like to make a couple of comments. Well, I'll save those comments for later. I would appreciate your support on the amendment. Oh, and Madam Chair, I'd ask for a roll call.
Representative Scott requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the amendment. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm wondering if the author would yield in regard to the amendment.
The author of the amendment or the author of the bill?
The author of the bill in regard to the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Kunesh Padin will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Kunesh Padin, why did you not use the word sex here instead of the word gender that you chose for the bill, as reflected in Representative Scott's amendment?
Representative Kunesh Padin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative. We chose to use the word gender because we felt it was inclusive of our society in this day and age. Sex is a very limited word as it has been used in the past. And we would like to ensure that all the folks of Minnesota feel included under this umbrella of a constitutional amendment. And Madam Speaker, may I ask Representative Drazkowski a question?
Not while he has the floor. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the author continue to yield?
She will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Kunesh Padin, is there anybody in Minnesota that does not have a sex?
Representative Kunesh Padin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Drazkowski, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not an expert on sexuality when it comes to genotype or xenotype or chromosomal medical information, so I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that question.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, Representative Kanish-Padin, it's not exactly what you said in committee, but you've developed a good dodge around the question. But the response in committee, members, was that she was not aware of anybody that did not have a sex. And the reality is that the word sex in this amendment would be as inclusive as you could be. And to come forward and claim that adding the word gender, which no one in the world seems to have a definition for that I have heard of yet, to claim that that is more inclusive than including the word sex in this bill is preposterous. And so, Madam Speaker, members, I would encourage adoption of the Scott Amendment to have something that is able to be referenced in law, something that if we commit this to the voters for them to decide upon, they will clearly be able to see and understand what they are voting on. The way the bill has been presented here presents nothing that the voters of Minnesota will even understand. Members, for us to bring something to them, not only that they don't understand, but that they cannot reference the meaning of in law is itself irresponsible. So, members, if we bring this bill forward without correcting the fatal flaw in the bill, we are committing a very irresponsible decision and act as a Minnesota House of Representatives. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Considine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the author of the amendment yield?
She will yield. Representative Considine.
What's the difference between gender in 1986 and today, please?
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would say that the public perception has changed, Representative Considine. I believe in 1986, people saw, when they saw the word gender, they said male or female, and that's not what the connotation of the word is today, necessarily.
Representative Considine.
Thank you. Would she continue to yield?
She will. Representative Considine.
And where do you base that out of? Is that Webster? Is that your personal feeling?
I just want to remind members that during debate, it is the language of the bills and the amendments that is subject to debate. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll go ahead and just give a common day illustration of the confusion around the word gender. Facebook alone has 75 different words for describing gender. Representative Considine.
Representative Considine.
And that was different than, I'm sorry, will she continue to yield?
She will yield. Representative Considine.
Is that different from 1986? I don't recall any. Facebook wasn't around in 1986.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think he asked me to continue to yield. No, Facebook was not around in 1986, Representative Considine. But I bet if we look back at a dictionary from 1986, it would say male or female, something to that effect. And I mean, we can work on it here, looking on the computer if you really want an answer. I don't know if you really want an answer or not, but we can certainly find out what 1986, how they define gender, if you would like us to do that.
Representative Considine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm guessing if I look in a dictionary today, that's the same definition I'm going to get in a dictionary. Basing something on social media. What's our president say? Oh, yeah, fake news. Thank you.
Further discussion to the amendment. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Considine, that might be the dictionary definition. And if that's the case, then I would ask the bill's author to yield for a question.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as the bill's author, Representative Kunish-Podine, could you give us your definition of gender?
Representative Kunish-Podine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. So I've been doing a little bit of research on the word. Since you brought it up, I was a little surprised by the confusion that you all seem to have around the word gender. It's not a new word. It's a word that's been around forever and ever. Its root word is genre or genre. I'm sure many of you understood that word when you went to school, meaning different types, different sorts of things. And that's the base of the word gender. But in the English Oxford Living Dictionary, it says it's a noun. This is used as a noun. Where sex can be used as a noun, it can be used as an adjective, it can be used as a verb. And gender is either of the two sexes, male or female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences other than biological ones. And then it goes on to say that the term is also used more broadly to denote a range of identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male or female. And then in quotation marks, as an example, it uses a condition that affects people of both genders. So they use it in an example. And then there's a little paragraph about the usage of the word gender. The word gender has been used since the 14th century. It's a grammatical term, and it refers to classes of nouns designated as male, female, or neuter. The sense denoting biological sex has also been used since the 14th century, but this did not become common until the 20th century. And although the words gender and sex are often used interchangeably, this is in the dictionary, they have slightly different connotations. Sex tends to refer to biological differences, while gender more often refers to cultural and social differences and sometimes encompasses a broader range of identities than the binary of male and female. And that is the definition that I embrace, and the authors and the folks that worked on this embrace, is that we recognize that in this day and age, not everybody identifies as male or female. They might identify as something else that they are more comfortable with. And for that reason, we have chosen the word gender. The other thing I wanted to point out, and some of the other representatives have mentioned that there isn't a definition of the word the word gender in our statutes or in our law. But nonetheless, when I went to the Office of the Revisers of the Statutes, I found 91 uses of the word gender in our statutes. Let's see, there are some examples of this is that under administrative procedures, there are 3 occurrences of uses of the word gender. Under life insurance, there's 1 reference to gender. Under accident and health insurance, there are 2 occurrences listed in there. Oh, let's see what else we have here. Minnesota State Colleges and Universities, 2 of them. Department of Health, Board of Social Practices, Public Employment and Labor Relations, Uniform Commercial Code. There's 3 uses of the word gender. Human rights, of course, it's listed in human rights 3 times. Let's see. Interpretation of statutes and rules. There it is. So we might not have a definition in our statutes or wherever it is that you feel you need to have that definition of gender. I also didn't find a definition of the word sex. So therefore, I don't see what the problem is using the word gender in this bill. And when you talk about Rhode Island being the only other one that used the word gender, we have a list of all the different equal rights amendments across the state. Minnesota would be the 28th if we accept this and vote on it, voted in 2020. We would be the 28th state to do so. And every single one of them is a little bit different. There are some equal rights amendments from the states that don't even have the word sex in it. So the use of gender should not be an issue here, and I think you totally underestimate the people of Minnesota if you think that they cannot figure out or learn how to understand the word gender in this bill. And the one thing I would like to remind you also is that this is not a bill about should we use the word gender. This is a bill that is allowing the people of Minnesota to choose. Should we add this question? Should we add that question of equality onto our ballot in 2020? And that would give them, what, at least a year, year and a half, to do their own research on what that word gender means. And if they are comfortable with that word gender in there, then it is up to them. They have the freedom to choose or not to choose to have that statement in our state constitution. So I guess I just don't understand what the big deal is about the word gender.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we looked up what the root word of the word gender is, and it's geno. And that comes from Genesis. The book of Genesis is the original foundation of that word. And of course, that goes back to, in Genesis, God created male and female. So that's where the word came from. And so Madam Speaker, point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Is it appropriate for members to laugh at something that someone else has stated as a serious point as far as decorum on the House floor?
Members, I would encourage all of us to be polite to one another throughout all of the debates. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I can't argue with the root of the word. That's where the word came from. That's the Latin. So members, I would ask for support on this amendment. I do believe that there's confusion around what the word means. And, you know, one of the things that the bill's author talked about in committee was the original intent of the ERA. And that's to elevate women to the level, the same level playing field as men have traditionally had in this country. And I think we've made tremendous strides. In fact, I'm not sure that we really even need to do this, because I think women are there. But what this bill, by the use of the word gender and by the bill's author, her own indication of what it means to her, the word gender, to me it's eroding the strides that women have made in society and in sports. I look at sports. There's an article out of Connecticut. 2 biological males, Terry Miller and Andrea Yearwood, finished first and second, respectively, in the 55-meter dash this year, crushing the competition. Miller set a new girls' indoor record and also won the 300-meter. The year before, the two finished first and second in the 100-meter state outdoor championship against girls. I don't think that's okay. And I don't think that people in Minnesota think that that's okay. Members, please vote green on this amendment.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the author of the bill yield?
She will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Kanish-Padin, how many genders are there?
Representative Kunish-Padin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative. I can't tell you how many there are.
Representative Drazkowski.
Well, Madam Speaker, I'm confused. We know there's 2 sexes, there's male and female, and the author wants to, instead of include something that we actually know something about in the bill, something that she doesn't know anything about. Now, I haven't seen bills come through here before where the author doesn't know anything about the root part of the bill. And we're going to pass a bill when the author doesn't even know what the bill means. Well, members, I did a little research. Some places say there's 63 genders. Another one said there was 87. One said there was 112. And then I read one place where they said it's infinite. You can invent a gender as you go. One place said there is a particular gender where you can be a gender one day and a different one the next day or the next minute, and that's a gender. Madam Speaker, would Representative Christensen yield for a question?
First, I have to find where she sits on the floor. Over here, she will yield. Representative Drzkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Christensen, you're a teacher. What will this do for kids? And if we have this, will this apply to kids?
Representative Christensen.
Madam Speaker, Representative, I'm a retired teacher. What we're trying to do here is get this onto the ballot so that the people of Minnesota can make a decision about this bill. So I'm not here to discuss gender or how many there are or how many there aren't. I'm here to discuss whether this can go onto the ballot and the Minnesota people make a decision. Thank you.
Representative Drzkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Christensen continue to yield?
She will. Representative Drzkowski.
Well, Representative Christensen, it's important that we know the content of the bill we're going to vote on. And you're going to vote for this bill, I'm assuming. The majority is bringing this through. Well, maybe you haven't decided yet. But I hope when you make that decision, you actually know what you're voting on. Representative Christensen, have you ever heard of gray gender? Do you know what that means?
Representative Christensen.
Madam Speaker, Representative, no, I don't.
Representative Drzkowski.
So, Representative Christensen, you don't know what gray gender means, or I'm guessing probably any of the other 112 on one of these sheets and more than that on others. Gray gender is a person who perceives themselves as a person with a weak gender identification, according to the sheet. Now, Representative Christensen, do you think that the people of Minnesota know what gray gender means? Well, if she would yield, Madam Speaker.
She will yield. Representative Christensen.
Madam Speaker, Representative, I have no idea whether the people know what gray gender is. We're here to vote to put this bill on the ballot for the Minnesota people to make a decision. We're not making a decision about gender or sex today. We are voting to put this on the ballot so that the people of Minnesota can make a decision. Thank you.
Representative Drzkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Christensen. Well, Madam Speaker, Representative Christensen knows nothing about what's in the bill. The root of the bill is dealing with gender, and she knows nothing about these genders.
Point of order.
Representative
Mason's
Winkler, for
124.
what purpose do you rise?
Madam Speaker, point of order, personalities in debate under Mason's section 124.
Members, please remember that the item in debate is the language of an amendment or the language of a bill, and not the motives of an individual member or the characteristics of an individual member. And please confine your debate to the content of the amendment before the body. Representative Drzkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, would Representative Morrison yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Drzkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Morrison, are you familiar with any of these genders? Are you familiar with what a pansexual is?
Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Drzkowski. No.
Representative Drzkowski.
Okay, would Representative, is it Boehner or Bonner, yield for a question?
It is Bonner. She will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm still meeting some of the new members, so look forward to talking to you more, Representative Bonner. But Representative Bonner, thank you for yielding. Do you know what a fetishist is?
Representative Bonner.
Madam Chair, Representative Drazkowski, I am not aware of that particular term. However, I can tell you that one does not need to know what gender someone is in order to vote to include equality in the state of Minnesota's Constitution, nor do they need to know someone's gender in order to know that human beings should be treated equally. Thank you.
Representative Drazkowski.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Bonner. But we need to know what this bill means, and we're trying to discern what that is. And I have yet to determine or hear from anybody what this means and what it's going to mean to the people of Minnesota, and what is it going to mean, Madam Speaker, when this gets written into the law of the land, the Constitution of our state, and we have litigants coming forward who are going to want to know the context of what this means. Could we have litigants coming forward and inventing a gender in order to position themselves for litigation? Members, I think that's something we should ponder. When we have a bunch of genders here that people in this room, the represented elected people of the state of Minnesota, don't know what they mean, how can we expect the people who sent us here to know what this ballot means when we put that responsibility in front of them? Madam Speaker, members, this bill, not only is it not ready for prime time, the author and the members in this body don't know what it means. It would be irresponsible for us to send it forward. Madam Speaker, I support Representative Scott's amendment. Let's turn this very confusing and confused proposal into one that actually makes sense, that the people in this body and the people of our state can actually understand. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Herr.
Madam Speaker, would Representative Drazkowski, I'm not even sure the right language, yield for a question, please?
He will yield. Representative Herr.
Thank you. Representative Drazkowski, do you know what a putau is?
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Herr, I don't know what that is, and I don't know what about 110 of these other things are on here either.
That's okay, because my question
Representative Herr.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is that I don't know all races, I don't know all ethnic groups, I don't know all cultures in this country, but I know that when we use the word cultures, races, and religion, that it is inclusive, whether I know they exist or not, that they exist, and that the work that I do that surrounds those words, I may not know all of them, but I use it so that I can include everybody within that. So we may not know all of the genders, we may not know all of the different identifications, but that does not exclude us from using the words and being inclusive. And so until we are able then to define it for every other thing that we may not know exists, I think that this is sort of a moot point.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Pearson. There is to be no displays in the gallery. The member from Olmsted, Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was just hoping and would ask that Representative Kunesh-Podein would yield to a question.
She will yield. Representative Pearson.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, it's more of a request. Could you read the sentence you used in the definition of gender again? The sentence you used as an example.
Representative Kunesh-Podein.
The sentence is a condition that affects people of both genders.
Representative Pearson. Further discussion to the Scott Amendment. Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll on the Scott Amendment. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. Mariani votes no. There being 59 ayes and 68 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
O'Neill moves to amend House File Number 13, the first engrossment as follows, and the amendment is coded A10. That's okay. We'll correct it.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So in committee, we had a very robust discussion about sex and gender, as we have had today on the House floor as well. So I did a little bit more research, as did the author of the bill, which I appreciate that you actually read. You actually read a much longer definition of gender, and I believe that's probably what Representative Pearson was kind of getting at. In that, you had said it was similar to sex, male or female, and so on. And so I did a little bit more research and realized that I think what we're talking about, maybe what we're tripped up on, is maybe gender identity. And a lot of the discussion on the floor today really has been more categorized under gender identity, which is slightly different. So I would like to offer a definition so we're all clear, because obviously there is quite a bit of confusion. There was confusion in committee, there was confusion today. So with that, members, I'd like to offer the A10, which defines gender as a person's status as male or female as listed on your birth certificate, which is very similar to what we've been discussing about what the original meaning of the word. And I appreciate what Representative Scott had said about where the word had originated from. Now, we all know that birth certificates, as people go through, if they're transitioning to a different gender, they can change their birth certificate. So I hope that you can support this amendment and make it just slightly more clear and move away from really the gender identity conversation, which I think that we were actually having, as opposed to the word gender. So this is just making this more clear so Minnesota knows what we're talking about. Because I think it's important that Minnesotans, if they're going to put this in our Constitution, really understand what gender means. I feel like if we're confused, I think that the state of Minnesota will be confused. So this is clarifying the word gender and defining it. Thank you, members. I look forward for your support.
Discussion.
Madam Speaker, I'm sorry.
Representative
I'd like
O'Neill.
a roll call too, please.
Representative O'Neill requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise to oppose this amendment. And I do so because we're focusing on the wrong question about what Representative Kunesh-Podein's bill does. The question is not about how we define gender. The question is not about who we leave out for equality in the state of Minnesota. The question is about equality in the state of Minnesota. And let's be crystal clear. There's a lot of folks, and we already heard it today on the floor, that think equality has been achieved. Maybe people think equality for women was achieved when the 19th Amendment was passed and women got the right to vote in this country after 150 years of fighting. But equality was not achieved in 1920 when women got the right to vote, because a lot of people were left out of that amendment. And we had to fight and fight and fight. And in 1964, we had the Civil Rights Act. And we had to come back again and say, and I was so grateful to hear the words about the people who were bloodied on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I walked across that bridge this summer, where people were saying, we are not equal under the law. We need the law to protect equality. We need the law to recognize our humanity. because that's what we're talking about when we talk about equality under the law. Women were not given the right to vote for decades, for generations, because women were not considered citizens under the law. This is the fight that we're having. It's about people's humanity. That's what equality gives us. It gives us the right to say, I am equal to you. My humanity matters as much as your humanity matters. I see the humanity in you. And so this discussion about who we're going to leave out, about a bill that aims to finally close the loophole with regard to equality under the law for all Minnesotans, does not make sense to me. I'm very pleased to be standing up here today having a discussion, finally, after my 50 years on this earth, about finally getting to a place where we're going to recognize equality under the law for all citizens, and we're not going to make determinations about who we leave out when it comes to equality. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Discussion. Seeing no discussion, the clerk, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just was seeing if anyone else, or Madam Speaker, if anyone else had something else to say, but Representative Halverson, I really appreciate what you have to say, and I think everyone in this room believes that we are all equal. We are all created equal, and that is in our U.S. Constitution. We are all created equal. There's no arguing with that. And you and I are the same age, and we have had similar paths and similar fights. And every woman in this room knows what I'm talking about, that sometimes you feel like you have to work harder, you have to be more articulate, you have to express yourself in a very powerful way to be heard. We all understand that. We are all here elected because we have put ourselves out there and have been powerful and articulate and intelligent. We all want equality among all people. I don't see my amendment as doing anything to deter that. I would not do anything to deter that. I have had an incredible fight, an incredible journey, and if you ever want to hear the full journey, come out and have dinner with me sometime. I have quite a personal story, many personal stories. In fact, when people get to know me, they say, you should write a book. My family has had an incredible story. My brother is right here on the House floor with us. And my son just informed me that he now wants to run for office someday, so I guess the bug has been caught. But we all believe in equality. That's not in debate here. Unfortunately, the conversation has gotten caught up in a word, and that is unfortunate. I'm trying to clarify that. I'm not trying to detract, and I will not detract, that we are all created equal. With that, members, I ask for your support for my amendment. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll on the O'Neill amendment. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. Mariani votes no. There being 57 ayes and 72 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
O'Neill moves to amend House File Number 13, the first engrossment as follows, and the amendment is coded A8.
Representative O'Neill to the A8 amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So the other conversation that we had at great length in the committee was this connection to abortion, which I actually was taken a bit by surprise with that conversation. It took me a while to figure out how that connection actually came to be. And so again, I did a lot of research, and any member that gets to know me knows that I know my stuff, I dig deep. So I did a little bit of research, and I found out that that was absolutely true, that when an ERA amendment, a constitutional amendment had gone on in a couple different states, that something very interesting happened. And let me just reference that. In 1998, New Mexico's ban on taxpayer-funded abortion was struck down based solely on the ERA. Just recently, on January 16th of 2019, a lawsuit was filed in Pennsylvania. Now that lawsuit hasn't been finalized yet, so we don't know the outcome, but nonetheless, it's based on their ERA saying that their funding also that their ban on state funding for abortion is in jeopardy. Now, whether you agree or disagree with abortion, I don't believe that's relevant. I think that what is relevant is that this should not be used as a tool for or against abortion, especially when it comes to funding. So this amendment makes it very, very clear. It is abortion neutral. It simply says that this doesn't support or detract from funding for abortion. So it doesn't affect it in either way, because either way, we don't want this equal rights amendment to affect abortion on either side. And it just makes it very clear, and there is precedence and there is history for this amendment. And MCCL has a letter, I believe, that will be passed out if it hasn't been already, and explaining exactly their stand on that. So I just want to make sure that you also get that letter. I'm not sure if the pages have passed it out yet, but there is a letter from MCCL that will be in support of this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I do request a roll call.
Representative O'Neill requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the A8 amendment. The member from Ramsey, Representative Kunesh Padin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would just like to point out that once again, this is not a bill that is centered around abortion. And as we had discussions in committee, we all know that you can take any piece of legislation and twist it and turn it in whatever way you want to for your own purpose. And we see that happen often here at the House. But I just want to remind everybody that in 1995, the Minnesota Supreme Court ruled via Doe versus Gomez that the right to abortion is in fact a fundamental right for women in the state of Minnesota. So that amendment has no part to this, has no connection to this, this piece of legislation. The ruling went further, saying that, noting that not funding abortion, not providing those services adds an undue financial constraint, especially for low-income women, and that therefore eliminates choice. And so I would say that this amendment is another moot point on this piece of legislation.
Discussion. The member from Sibley, Representative Grunhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I would just rise in support of Representative O'Neill's amendment. You know, things advance in science and fetal research, okay? And what we didn't know in 1973, we do know now, all right? We know that life begins at conception. We know that it's an unborn child. And we know that other countries, Russia, many countries in Europe, have limited or eliminated abortion based on the research and advancement in medical science and fetal research. We still are in the barbaric position in America of allowing abortions all the way to the 9th month, and we even have people today, elected politicians, who want to kill the child after it's born if it doesn't meet a certain standard. I would define that as a barbaric stand, anti-science, anti-fetal research, and so members, I think this is a good safeguard in the bill, and I think it reflects the reality of the advancement of medical science and fetal research. Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
Discussion to the A8 amendment. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I would just reemphasize that this is abortion neutral, and so I know that the author of the bill believes that this doesn't really do anything, and so what's the harm? What's the harm in just allowing this to go on? Because this is going into the Constitution. When you put something in the Constitution, you have to get it right. Court cases can be overturned, court cases can change. The Constitution can change, but it is very, very difficult to change, as we are finding out. So I would just ask you if you feel that this has no effect, to just see it as a friendly amendment. We are trying to meet you halfway. And even in committee, you said you just didn't see the connection. Well, there is a connection. I told you that in 1998, New Mexico had that same issue. Just in January of this year, there was another lawsuit filed. We're just asking for neutrality, that it not be used for or against funding for abortion. Thank you, and I ask again for your green vote.
The clerk will take the roll on the O'Neill amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 60 ayes and 69 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gruenhagen moves to amend House File Number 13, the first engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A19-0149.
Representative Gruenhagen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, what this amendment does, it deletes the word gender, which we've had some discussions on here, and replaces it with the word biological sex. There's 3 places in the bill where it replaces that word. The rationale behind it is this, members. Biological sex is an objective fact. You can measure DNA. Representative Kunesh-Podein used the word inclusive and gender. Okay? Also, well, Madam Chair, would Representative Kunesh-Podein yield for a question?
Representative Kunesh-Podein will yield. Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Kunesh-Podein, I have a quote here that you stated, and I just want to read it and see if you'll confirm that, that this was accurate. It says, "My working definition for gender is a reflection of who you see yourself as, whether it's male, female, trans, whatever it is, that's who you are. That's how you identify yourself as gender." Representative Kunesh-Podein, does that accurately reflect your quote?
Representative Kunesh-Podein.
Madam Speaker and Representative Gruenhagen, I believe I did say that, and I believe I would stand behind that again.
Representative Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, what we're doing here is when you use the word inclusive and gender in terms of her statement here, you're allowing people to change their identity based on feelings, okay? Not objective facts. Think about that. They can feel one way one day and feel another day another way. And we know the incidences in the state of Minnesota here where we have males who identify or feel like a female, and they want to use women's restrooms, they want to use women's showers, they want to use women's locker rooms. And that can also be vice versa. So what we're doing here, members, when we open this type of wording based on the author's stated comments, you're opening it up to feelings which can shift in multiple different directions. I would also add that it'll reflect in all areas of society, including our schools and also our culture in general. It'll open a can of worms in terms of lawsuits. Now, I didn't say lawyers were a can of worms. I said lawsuits can be, okay? And this will open that door, all right? Think about it, members. It's however you feel, okay? I can feel one way one day and feel another way another day. You're creating a relativistic scenario that you cannot pin people down on. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to ask Representative Jean Pawlowski to yield.
He will yield. Representative Gruenhagen.
I thought it looked like he said no for a minute. But Representative Pawlowski, you've been in education a long time. Can you see a problem with this amendment and using the word gender and the statement that the author used, where we now open up the interpretation in statute and actually in our Constitution to people making decisions about whether they're male or female based on their feelings?
The member from Winona, Representative Pawlowski.
Madam Speaker and Representative Gruenhagen, it would be inappropriate for me to give an opinion on this amendment and on the discussion. I'm listening to it and I'm drawing my own conclusions. I think you'll see my opinion when the vote is taken.
Representative Gruenhagen.
That's the first time since I've been here that Representative Pawlowski didn't give me a straight answer. Or one that I could completely understand.
Please confine your remarks to the text of the amendment and the subject before the body.
So, members, this amendment, the amendment I have, will be objective truth, okay? Not based upon feelings. Think of your own children and your grandchildren, okay? Do you really want them using restrooms, locker rooms, and dressing rooms, and people of the opposite sex based on feelings coming in to use those facilities with them? It's extremely disadvantaged or even dangerous in some particular cases. The other thing I would say about the idea of defining your identity based upon feelings, the psychological DMS diagnostic manual says that gender identity, deciding your identity based on your feelings, is a mental condition. They call it dental or gender dysphoria. It's a treatable mental condition. We need to have people who are struggling with this. We need to get them the help to accept their biological sex versus live in a world that is not based on objective reality. Madam Speaker, the other thing I would just add in support of this is that I have, as most of you know, I've been on the school board for 16 years. Okay, we got that one out of the way. I also did 13 years of jail ministry, and I also served at a soup kitchen with my dad used to manage. So I'll put my record of caring about people up against almost anybody's, okay? I just served at a soup kitchen off Hennepin Avenue. The point is this: I don't want to discriminate against anyone, and I support women's sports and equal rights for women. I have a granddaughter who's a basketball player. While I was on the school board, I never discriminated against women's sports. But to allow people to change their identity based on feelings and to use private facilities reserved for one biological sex versus the other is an apostasy. I'm sorry. These people need our help. They don't need our legal support. With that, Madam Speaker, I would urge a green vote and would ask for a roll call.
Representative Gruenhagen requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the 149 amendment. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 52 ayes and 75 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 13.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Appreciate that. Would the bill's author yield to a couple more questions?
Representative Kunesh-Podein will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the Connecticut story that I read, reference to where the two males, transgender males identifying as women that were on the girls' track team and winning and beating the girls on the track team. You know, we've had a lot of discussion here about equality, and I'm just wondering if you think that is a good example of equality.
Representative Kunesh-Podein.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. Is that an opportunity for equality? It gives everybody the opportunity to perform in the way that they feel the best. But I think what we really want to get back to is the fact that this is not about sports and who can play sports and who can't play sports and who can be on what team and who has to go in one gym and who has to go in another bathroom. That's not what this bill is about. This bill is about giving the people of Minnesota the opportunity to choose the amendment, the Equal Rights Amendment. And if it comes down to a situation where a school has to make that decision, who can be on a team and who can't be on a team, then much like we hear in our committee meetings, I think that's an important discussion that the schools should have, that the communities should have. Because those people are somebody's kids. Those people are somebody's friends. Those boys should have the opportunity to fulfill the important things that make their life fulfilling as well. And so if it were up to me, I would then suggest that maybe that school district, that superintendent, that school board, those community members, sit down and talk with that family and see what can we do to create a really positive environment for these boys and these girls and these people in our community. So I just want to bring you back to what this bill is all about. This bill is not about who can play on what sports team. This bill is about letting Minnesota choose this amendment.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, but Representative Kunesh-Podein, if this would become law, there would not be anything that we could do about that situation. No amount of community discussions would have any effect, because under this law, if it passed and became law, those young men would be able to, those transgender males would be able to compete on the same basketball court, the same track field, wrestling, I don't care what it is, they'd be able to compete with women and if this thing became law. And if Representative Kunesh-Podein would yield to another question, Madam Chair.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would passage of this automatically allow for shared parenting, equal shared parenting? I've been an advocate of that for 10 years since I've been here. And I'm just wondering if the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment here in Minnesota would allow for equal shared parenting in the law.
Representative Kunesh-Podein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative. I believe that is up to the courts to decide who and how best to share children with their parents. You and I both know that I support that equal parenting. My husband and I did that, or my former husband. We created a really good environment, a really good life for our children. And we did that without having to look at the Constitution for that guidance. We did that because we knew what was best for our children. And this bill, again, is about letting Minnesota decide what is best for Minnesota.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If she would yield to one last question, please.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you. And Representative Kunesh-Podein, we have the Human Rights Amendment here in Minnesota, and it protects for things, protected classes are sex, sexual orientation. So if this were to become law, would those protections for sex and sexual preference come out of the Equal Rights Amendment then? Would that be nullified because the assumption would be equality across the board?
Representative Kunesh-Podein.
So let's look back at history a little bit and about the paranoia that goes along with the history of the ERA. Back in the day when it was suggested that we would have this ERA amendment, it should have followed the women's right to vote, but it didn't. And why didn't it? Why have we had to wait all this time to get this to pass? In the 1920s, up until pre-World War II, it was all about, you already have the vote, so don't you have enough? And then in the 50s and 60s, a woman, could still not have her own credit card, her own credit account. She couldn't sign a mortgage, she couldn't serve on a jury. And then in the 70s, which, when I discovered this really blew me away because I remember the 70s very well, people had the paranoia that women would all of a sudden lose their femininity, that men would forget how to take care of their families, that, heaven forbid, we'd have unisex bathrooms, all right? So this is the kind of suggestion that we have to make all of these changes based on this amendment. Again, the law would have to look at that. I can't tell you how it would be chosen, how the law would decide one way or the other. But I do know that we want to take this question of the Equal Rights Amendment to the people of Minnesota and decide if they want equality by law, unabridged, according to gender.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, to the bill's author, I don't think anyone's being paranoid here, as you referred. I think what we're really concerned about is what the ramifications of passage of this would actually look like in our everyday lives. And you stated in committee, when your opening comments, that you really wanted this to pass because you wanted equality for women. And then it kind of morphed into this equality for everything. The definition broadened and your purpose seemed to broaden. And I feel like the ERA was really about equal rights for women. That was the original intent of the Equal Rights Amendment. And I feel like in a way that it's kind of lost its punch for women. and it's become a little bit hijacked here. And we've learned here today that there's no definition for gender in statute, so it could mean many things. It could expand possibly the number of abortions in the state of Minnesota, and it would create an unfair playing field for women in athletics and girls in athletics. And so, members, I would urge a no vote on this. It's not going to do what it was intended to do, and that was make an equal playing field for women. Thank you, members.
The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I rise in support of this bill and this amendment going to the Minnesota voters. And I do so with a lot of joy in my heart. I mentioned I'd been around for a few years, and I was a little girl during that second wave when my mom in our small town was the mom in town that was wearing her ERA button. And to be able to stand here today with my ERA button on and get to vote on this is pretty darn thrilling for me. And last year at the rally, I was really excited to see the big turnout that we had for the ERA rally. And I was thinking to myself, my goodness, it's taken a long time. The march towards equality has taken a long time, hundreds of years in this country. And we owe a great debt to a lot of people who came before us. But as I looked around the room that was celebrating the march toward equality in the state of Minnesota, I understood why it's taken us this long. And it's because as we march toward equality in this country and in the state, we sadly consistently left people behind. Women with disabilities had been left behind. Women of color had been left behind. Lesbian women had been left behind. Transgender women had been left behind. And when I stood at that rally last year, I saw what equality for everyone looked like, because everyone was finally at the table. We aren't going to leave anybody behind anymore. And so that's why it's especially heartening for me to be here today in a room where we have elected so many women to office, in a room where we have a strong and vibrant posse caucus that are bringing voices to our state capitol that have not been equally represented over the years. And so it is incredibly meaningful for me to get to push the yes button on this bill. For the history that we have fought for, as Representative Kunesh-Podein laid out, and for the future that we get to build that brings everybody to the table. So please vote yes on this bill.
The member from Freeborn, Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's been an interesting conversation here. And I want to say that I am here as a legislator because I care and because I want to help people. And I really believe that all of you, my colleagues, are here for that same reason. There are some people here who think that this would be one step for equal rights, when in reality it's a giant step backward for the equal rights of women and girls. And the reason I'm saying that is there's certain areas of life where there are lines drawn for reasons, and one of them is in women's sports, and we've had that conversation a little bit here. I'm concerned that we are not being very clear on what gender means to the public when we're passing this bill right now and when we put this on an amendment and on the ballot eventually, because we're opening up right now what I see is the end of girls and women's sports as we know it. And I played sports in high school and college, and I loved it, and it was a big part of my life and a big part of building character, and it still is for young people. And girls and women worked so hard to be able to compete in sports and have their own sports. And the unintended consequence of what's going to happen here when we play this out is that girls and women are no longer going to have that opportunity to win state honors, to get scholarships, to be on the Olympics, for the simple reason and the fact that male physical bodies who identify as female, those bodies are still male bodies, and they have advantages over women. That's why we have girls' sports and boys' sports, and that's why we have women's sports and men's sports. And this is going to break down that barrier that's been there and that women have fought for years. We can't take this away from them. We're going backwards, people. It is not fair to women, and it's not fair to girls. I want to see girls get scholarships for their sports, for winning their state competitions. I want to see boys get scholarships for winning state competitions. But we have to draw a line on this. So let's think about it. Let's think about the unintended consequences here. And I'm going to say this again, that some see this as a step forward for equal rights, when in reality, it's a huge step backwards for the rights of women and girls. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Considine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My entire life, this has been popping up. And in the 70s, I was in high school, and my mother was an ardent supporter. And we were upper middle class, white, and I just, Mom, really? Is this something that you need to be getting into? And she looked at me and said, are you aware that your father can take my paycheck when I come through the door and just go cash it? Now, my father's survival instincts were finely tuned, and he would never have done that. But it was the law that you could take your wife's paycheck, cash it, spend it any way you want. And these laws continue to pop up over the years, and frankly, I do not want to meet my mother again anytime soon. And I'm afraid she'd come back and haunt me if I didn't get up here and talk in favor of it. But I have a sister, I have a wife, I have a daughter-in-law, and I have 4 granddaughters. And I'll be damned if any of them are going to be second-class citizens. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Moran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, you know, I think this conversation is sending us back into a time when women didn't have much of what we have today. And I think many of us women who are in this body today are here because women had to fight to create a space for us to be recognized and valued and capable of doing the work that we do every day in a single body. Because there was a time when there was all men in this body, and we didn't have that privilege. But it was the women who stood up and fought. This is the pleasure you have today, that we have today, because of the work they did then. Quite frankly, I really think that we're not going far enough. I think we should have full constitutional privilege, not only at the state level, but at the federal level. I think we need to go just full ahead to make that happen. But really the lack of an equal rights amendment, which would prohibit, I believe, will prohibit the discrimination on the basis of sex, gender, whatever word we need to use, it will prohibit that. It's especially harmful to folks that looks like me, women of color, who face discrimination both on the basis of sex, gender, and on the basis of race. That's the challenge that I have as a woman of color, as an African-American woman. We have not gone far enough to create equality for all women. With this amendment, it will correct the statement in our Constitution that all men are created equal. That is what this would do. I think that's a mistake that some man wrote into our Constitution, that it would be men who are created equal. And I think what it would do, it would correct it to say that all people are created equal. You know, back a few years ago, I carried a bill called the Equal Pay Bill that would recognize and validate that women need to be paid at the same rate for same work as men, because that is not the case today in 2019. We still are not there in 2019 when it comes to equality for women. Currently, we have women who are making 82 cents to a dollar, but that's for a white woman compared to a white man who makes $1. If you are African American, if you are Native American, we are making 60 plus cents to the dollar. And if you're Latina, you're making 57 cents to the dollar. If you are a Somali woman, you're making 54 cents to the dollar. There's nothing fair, just, or equal about that, or equitable about that. But this is where we are right now. I think you guys are looking back, and we need to move forward. The problem, we have gender discrimination that was illegal, that has been illegal. Gender discrimination has been illegal since 1969. But we still have these wage pay gaps that exist today. 1969, when gender discrimination became illegal. Wow. The problem is that when women receive a lower wage for equal work, this lower wage can follow her, follow me, follow us for the rest of our lives. That is what it does. So this amendment, it won't solve the wage gap, but it's an important step to say that we're equal. This amendment will help put women on an equal economic footing as men. Why not? We work as hard, we are smart, we are intelligent, we have passion. We do the work for all the good reasons, but yet we are not equal, we're not validated at the same rate as men. And so it is my hope that this is a simple bill. It is really simple. And we can't always be scared of progress. We can't always be scared of moving forward. We can't always be scared of standing up to do the right thing. We have women who are participating in the armed forces. Women will always have and girls will always have an opportunity to do sports. That's kind of like this. I mean, I don't know, why would we have women who are serving at the ultimate levels? But that was not always the case neither. We had to fight for that. We had to fight for it. We had to stand up. We had to prove ourselves. And we're still trying to prove ourselves that we're capable. And so the Equal Rights Amendment is simply saying that we need to be equal. But because our Constitution does not give us that. It's not a given. So I don't think we're going far enough. This is just saying, as a state of Minnesota, we need to recognize that and validate that. I personally think we need to go to the federal government and have it embedded in our Constitution at the federal level. Because we deserve that as women. We are riding on the back of other women who came before us. That is what we're doing today. That's where we are today in 2019. And so my hope is that, you know, as we debate and talk about what sex, gender, all the things that we fear could happen, may happen, could happen, that this is the right thing to do for our girls, for our daughters, for our nieces, for our grandkids, who are female, that we create a pathway for them. So 20 years from now, when they're in this body, we're not talking about, you know, that some women are making 60 cents to the dollar, 57 cents to the dollar. That men are making $1, and here women are who are head of households, who are running businesses, who are entrepreneurs and small business owners, but yet we are at a disadvantage just because we are women, for no other reason. So it is embedded in our Constitution. I think it was a mistake of men who didn't know any better, but we know better now. We know better now. And so my hope is that when we know better, we would do better. Women, we stand here because of the other women who came before us, who fought so hard. And now our little girls are dependent on us to fight for them, to make sure that they are valued equally and are worth everything that they put into this society, this state. So I support this bill wholeheartedly, and my hope is that we can take it before the people, you know, and let the people decide this. Is that what we're doing? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. And so, thank you so much.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Bonner.
Madam Chair, members, I just wanted to tell you that we seem to have, in some of our earlier discussion today and some of the things that we've said today, we talked a lot, I heard a lot about fear. We've talked a lot about different things, and we've lost sight of what we're really here for today. This bill is about bringing before the people of Minnesota the ability to decide for themselves whether or not people of any gender, whether women, have the right to control our own destiny. That's what we're talking about here today. And I can tell you that we have this patchwork of laws that we've created with this illusion that we think that we have equal rights as women. But the reality is that a house is only as good as its foundation. And the reality is that we have all these laws, and yet, if they were to go all the way to the Supreme Court, we have no foundation. Laws can change. We heard that earlier. Laws can be overturned. Things can be changed. We have the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act that is supposed to ensure fairness and equity. It does not. We know that women are being paid less. We know that our sisters of color are in many cases being paid even less than us. And I can tell you from personal experience, I worked at a large company here in Minnesota. And as I was leaving, I had a coworker come up to me. And he said to me, "Kristen, I want you to realize when you leave this place that you are amazing at what you do. I see the way you work with your teams, and you are incredibly good at what you do. And I want you to know that wherever you go next, whatever you do, you ask for what you're worth." And I thought that was a very odd thing for him to say. And so I asked him further. And he said, I know I'm probably not supposed to tell you this, Kristen, but, our department is almost 90% women. And I know what I make for a living. And I'm going to tell you what it is. You don't have to tell me what you make. And he let me know. And it turns out that what I came to realize is that I, over the course of 5 years, lost $100,000 of pay. And I was only one of the women in that department, and he told me in full disclosure that other women within my department that he had spoken to were in a similar state. Now I got to tell you, I don't know about the rest of the folks in this room and what you could do with $100,000. $100,000 could pay for an education. $100,000 could pay for a third of a house in my city. $100,000 compounded over the years in my retirement account is an incredible amount. And I am only one woman. One. I have to tell you that these laws that we've constructed with this illusion that we have the ability to put them in place, we don't. We need a foundation for that house. That is what we are trying to decide. This is about controlling our own destiny. This is about giving our sisters, our mothers, our daughters the right to control their own destiny. That is what this is about. Forget the rest of the noise. That is what we're here to do. And I have to tell you that I believe that the people of Minnesota are smart enough to figure out what this is about. We waited 133 years for the right to vote. It has been 232 years since the U.S. Constitution came into being, and we are still waiting. It is my dream, and one of the reasons that I ran for this office is because I want to see the day when the House of Government, the halls of government, have at least 50% women. Today we have about 15 to 25% women in the bodies of our government across the country and our nation. And for anybody who is not outraged by that, they should be. It is time. 232 years for equality is long enough. I urge you to vote yes for this.
The member from Beltrami, Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just want to thank Representative Moran for mentioning veterans, because I'm the source of this calendar that was handed out, and I talked to my fellow veterans up in American Legion Post 284, Cass Lake, Minnesota. I'm the current commander there. And this ERA came up. You all know there's a lot of women veterans, I'm sure. And we had a conversation about this situation, and I brought in this calendar. I was going through my calendars. This is for Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. It's one of the Vietnam organizations that I'm a member of as a Vietnam vet. And I was looking through it, and I brought this into my Legion post. And there's a number of women veterans in our Legion post there in Leech Lake Reservation. And we started talking a little bit about this ERA, and there's a lot of folks that don't know that women don't have full and equal rights. You've heard that talked about today. And most of the ones that don't know about it are men. So anyway, I brought this down. I thought, well, I'm going to hand this out, and I'm going to say a couple words. I didn't know this young lady in the picture there, but this particular calendar has a picture on the side of it of Vietnam veterans that came home in a body bag or didn't come home at all. I don't know the exact fate of this young lady, but she was killed in Vietnam. I just want to remind everybody, women have been on the front lines in combat zones in this United States of America since it was before the United States of America, since the Revolutionary War. And a lot of people don't think about that. But go through every war, every conflict we've been in, and there are women there in the combat zones. So I just want to help y'all hold your head high and vote for House File 13 because it's way past due. We've heard that from a number of places, but it's the honorable thing to do for our women veterans. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My entire time serving in the legislature, it has been my honor to fight for liberty and equality for all individuals, for all women and all men. And as I've been listening to the testimony on this bill in committee, and carefully listening to the testimony of members on the floor here, I've been carefully considering the unintended consequences, as colleague Representative Bennett mentioned. In committee, there were 7 women who testified either in person or submitted written testimony expressing their high concerns for this bill. So both in committee and on the floor here listening to the discussion, I have great concerns regarding the inability to define gender. I have great concerns regarding the very real threat to pro-life protections of life in the womb. I have great concerns to the threat to women's sports. I have great concerns to the threat to the physical safety and security of women and children. I have great concerns to the potential threat to family law. And for these reasons, members, I cannot support this language in front of us. Thank you.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My grandmother, Olivia, was an amazing woman. My middle name is Olivia. My daughter is Olivia. My granddaughter her middle name is Olivia. She did the most amazing job of raising my mother and my uncle in the height of the Great Depression after her husband left her for another woman. She worked hard. My mother would say, "Grandma works so hard." They lived in one-room little apartments in Minneapolis, one room with a hot plate. And every time the rent went up, they had to move. She was an amazing woman. I miss her. When I was 4 years old, she moved into our home because she couldn't afford to live in Minneapolis anymore. She was choosing rent or food, and she was just frail and small. And I know my brother's watching because he remembers better than I do because I was only 4, but I remember how frail she was when she moved into the house. But she was one tough cookie. She eventually would go and volunteer at the nursing home in Bagley. She loved it. She used to bring my sister and I, and we were just little, and so every time she'd bring us, they would just fawn over us. We'd hand out cookies, we'd play bingo. She was the most amazing woman. My mother was also an amazing woman. For the most part, self-taught. She had just a high school education, but man, was she smart. She ran our family businesses, all 4 of them, did all the books, taught herself. She was one smart woman, and she was tough as nails because my dad was incredibly tough, sometimes a little bit violent. And she did everything she could for us kids. I never doubted her devotion to us. I come from a line of incredibly strong women, and it breaks my heart to have to vote no on this bill today. And it's because we couldn't accept the amendment I will not allow this bill to be used as a tool for abortion. I just can't do it. I have held my own child in my arms as she died, and I will not, I cannot vote for this bill if it's going to be used as a tool on either side for abortion. And I already told you it's already been done. It breaks my heart to vote no. I wish we could reconsider the amendment. I think you'd get a lot of support if you would actually consider the amendment. I know you won't. But for that reason, I have to vote no.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Dabney.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's been an interesting debate today. I want to take us back a few years. Not long, 7 years ago, to 2012. You'll recall that in 2012, discrimination was on the ballot in Minnesota. We were told to fear the consequences if that constitutional amendment was not placed into our Constitution. We were told by big money and big institutions in this state that Minnesota simply had to sign on with discrimination to protect ourselves and our families and our schools and our state, because terrible, unintended consequences would happen if we didn't. Minnesotans saw through that. Minnesotans listened to the debate. They weighed and measured both sides, and they instead chose to affirm the full humanity of all Minnesotans by affirming the rights of our LGBT community. Because they didn't buy the fear, and maybe because they recognized that when I deny the full humanity and equality of others, I deny a piece of myself as well. As House File 13 has made its way through committee here, and here again on the House floor, we see the same playbook by the opponents. Fear of the unintended, fear of the unknown, fear of embracing and respecting the full humanity of girls and women in this state. Members, I believe in Minnesota and I believe in Minnesotans. And I think this time, as I will do today, Minnesotans will vote for their mothers and their sisters and their wives and their aunts and their neighbors and their coworkers and their friends, and they'll vote for their full humanity. They'll vote for equality before law. I urge members to do the same and vote green on House File 13. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Loeffler.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Women have always been asked to wait. No matter what the time is in history, we've been told it's not the right time. And what about this? And what about that? And if you walk away from what we're expecting you to do right now, there's nothing. Who else will pick that up? The women's movement to get just the basic right to vote took over 100 years, generations of women passing on to their daughters and their granddaughters the hope that someday they would actually have a say about what happened in the community that they live in the priorities of their society. and in the opportunity to choose who their leaders and what values would guide their society and setting priorities for their community. It took over 100 years. And they were told, but who will take care of the kids if they're going to these political meetings, and who will do the dishes, and who will put together the treats after the meetings, and and shouldn't they really focus on the gentle arts, which is really their specialty? But women didn't give up. They kept saying, we deserve to be heard. We are bright, we are smart, we have things to offer in all aspects of life. And because of their persistence, Minnesota was an early leader. We gave women the right to vote on school boards. We weren't willing to trust them on governor or legislator or anything else, but we gave them the right to have something to say about the schools. But we were an early leader because we were one of the first states to recognize that maybe women did know something about education and what was happening in the schools. And we've continued to have to be told to wait. The women's movement in the 70s galvanized women to once again get their hopes up, that they get a fair shake and a fair chance at using those newly minted degrees that many women graduated with. But they still didn't have the same opportunities. They came from high schools where they were told to be cheerleaders. Yeah, there was 2 or 3 competitive sports. I had never had a chance to be on a team. I can tell you it's been a lifelong disadvantage to me that I have never been on a team and a team player in an athletic setting when I deal mostly in all of my career with men who still think of things as an athletic playing field and who expect to have me play as a team player in whatever sport they excelled in. But it was the women's movement of the 70s that got us Title IX, and it was because it was in law. It wasn't out of goodwill. It was because it was in law and it was backed up by the courts that we got women playing time, and we got them uniforms, and we got them opportunities. But you know what? We can't stop with that, because the team that women need to and want to lead on is on these chairs and in the boardrooms. We have women disproportionately graduating with college degrees, more than men, but if you look at the leadership group of almost any institution in society, private or public, you will see that the leadership is still disproportionately men. But we are the honored and the lucky, those of us who got college degrees and had opportunities open to us, who got to sit here in these hallowed halls and make decisions. This vote will send a powerful message to the women who are still doing, quote, women's work. The women who are working for $13 to $15 an hour, helping a frail elderly person in the late stages of their life, and who, if they miss up on their medications, could be responsible for them not being able to maintain their health and their life for whatever is left. But do we talk a lot and make it a priority in this halls to make sure that that important work is valued and paid? No. Child care, we are paying right now under the Child Care Assistance Program, people at 25% of a base that is years old. 25% of what people paid 6-7 years ago. We still have much work to do, but I can tell you that the women who do those things, who work in professions that don't get the honor and respect that a lot of male-dominated professions do, will see this on the ballot, and they're going to say, that's for me. This says I am equal. And I think we, in our Constitution, it's a document of our highest values. We put in fishing in this document. Don't you think we deserve to have women and their role in our society there? We as a society believe in equality for all, including the half of us that are challenged and blessed to be women. And that doesn't take anything away from all of you men who we love working with and learning from and partnering with, even if sometimes I don't understand the athletic plays that you're talking about sometimes. And I think we need to say now, we're tired of waiting. And before I conclude, I want to recognize the women of the older generations who are watching here, whose hopes and dreams have been lasting for decades. and who are watching us right now, hoping that those things that they put time and heart and energy in decades ago will finally come to fruition through our vote today, and more importantly, a vote of the people. Thank you.
The member from Anoka, Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, I was sitting here, I don't know, it was an hour and a half, or maybe 2 hours ago, and I heard a member say that they thought that this amendment that we're discussing today wasn't necessary. And they said that they thought that we're already there. And you know, as I've been sitting here in the hour or so since then, those words have really stuck in the back of my mind, and I've been thinking about them and mulling them over, and they really, really bother me quite a bit. Because we are most definitely not there. We are not where we want to be on this issue. I want to share with the Chamber a few statistics. 1 in 3 women experience violence in their lives by an intimate partner. 1 in 3 women who are homeless in Minnesota today are homeless because of domestic violence. 72% of murder-suicides involve an intimate partner, and 92% of those crimes are committed against women. There is simply no question, it is not debatable, that Minnesota is experiencing unacceptable levels of violence against women. Now, there are a lot of ways to address that problem. We can toughen up penalties, and we should do that. We can close loopholes that abusers use and take advantage of, and we should absolutely do that too. And we can better support survivors and give them the resources they need to heal and rebuild their lives, and we should do that. But all of that, everything that I mentioned is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Members, if we want to end violence against women, if we want our mothers and our sisters and our friends and our daughters to be safe, we need to make a foundational change in the way our society views women. And a good place to start with that is by enshrining equality in our Constitution. There's a quote that gets thrown around a lot in politics that a budget is a moral document. And I think that's true. I think we express our values and how we choose to spend our limited resources. But if a budget is a moral document, then surely our Constitution is an even higher reflection of our values. In our Constitution, we tell the world what we believe. We tell them what is important to us, but we also tell each other. We also let other Minnesotans know what we believe. And I want every Minnesotan to know. I want my 93-year-old grandmother to know. I want my 4-year-old daughter to know. But maybe even more importantly, I want the 4-year-old boys in my daughter's preschool class to know that in Minnesota, we value women. We believe that women are equal to men. And so, members, don't tell me that we're already there. Don't tell me that Minnesota law protects women as much as it does men, not when just 2 weeks ago this chamber had to vote to make it illegal for men to rape their wives. Not when the Senate hasn't taken action on that bill, not when that reprehensible law is still on the books in Minnesota. Our vote 2 weeks ago is the proof. We still have a long road ahead of us. But this is a good first step down that road. I ask you all to take it with me.
The member from Anoka, Representative Runbeck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I remember 1972. I'm wearing my green T-shirt, right? The ERA green T-shirt with the language of the ERA amendment inscribed on it. I was. Might shock you. But I think at the time everybody was full of hope and enthusiasm that this meant that women's equality would be ensured. And as the debate ensued, a lot of concerns grew up. A lot of concerns about unintended consequences, about sloppy, vague language that wasn't going to get us anywhere. And also about the very real fact that what had been done was handing off to lawyers and bureaucrats and judges all the decisions that would have to do with how women should be treated. Instead, we've had wonderful 40 years of evolution, of women's rights being enhanced, because we have good laws. We have a 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which has guided us. We've had Title IX and so many other laws, the Human Rights Act in Minnesota and other states. We have made tremendous progress. And so 45 years later, we are seeing, record numbers of women in the military, in our law schools, in our medical schools, in our science and engineering schools. Women are combat fighter pilots, driving big rig operators, and so on. There have been landmark decisions in the area of wage discrimination have been major victories for women. And so, Representative Bonner, I'm terribly, terribly distressed about your story. That can't be happening. It just can't be happening in 2019 in Minnesota. One thing we may have to do is learn to fight for those rights. The rights are in the law. Let us learn to fight for ourselves, to stand up for ourselves, and to go after the rights that we are all deserving of and that we are owed. So back to the amendment, which I think is really what we have to talk about. What is in that amendment? And it is more than about women's rights. We've substituted the word gender. We are into a new and undefined frontier. And oh, by the way, the choice is to give it again to the courts. We're supposed to legislate this stuff. This is what was wrong with Roe v. Wade. We sent it to the courts and totally bypassed the input, totally bypassed the citizen concerns that should have been raised at every state along the way to create good law. But here we go once again. We're going to bypass the legislative process, send it to the courts for unknown hundreds and thousands of lawsuits that are going to have to take place to understand what this all means in this new frontier. So the problems in this bill, we've already talked about how we don't know what the definition of gender really is. And I'd say a lot of the supporters do not know the full impact of this themselves. But as I think Representative Bennett mentioned, this does stand the possibility of hurting women, that some of the securities and benefits we have in the Social Security system, some of the government programs that are strictly for women, I mean, what's going to happen to those, okay? Are those going to be subjected to the law and all of a sudden, because they're just for women and not for men also, those are going to have to go away? We could expect that pregnancy will be treated as just another medical issue, and any laws restricting access to abortion would be ruled unconstitutional. And because we do not have a definition of what gender is, think of this. Self-declared gender identity would be sufficient for legal protections. Self-declared gender identity would be sufficient for legal protections. That's a law that is out of control. There are no guideposts. There is nothing to tell us what is the way forward. This would threaten the legality of institutions that segregate based on gender, and that would be our single-sex schools, our school locker rooms, bathrooms, and more. It would strip people of the right to insist that someone of the same sex do our security pat-downs or supervise our locker rooms or conduct intimate medical exams. So I think there's a lot more in this bill that is not being discussed. I don't know why it's not being discussed. I think that in some ways we're looking at something of a Trojan horse. We'll find out when we get there. Well, that's not good enough. That's just not good enough. Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote in Sex Bias in the U.S. that if the ERA was ratified, it would change 800 federal laws. Members, this is cultural upheaval of untold proportions. I beg you, do not think that this is just a simple, we're going to make it really good for everybody and really fair. It's a lot worse than that. And we don't even know who wins really in this bill. We don't know who loses, but there are going to be losers. In that alone, we don't know the harm that might be done to so many people in the process. So let's just say that I want to say we have so many problems in our state and in our nation, and we could list them, but we don't need to. I think this is a sideline. We need to get down to the real business that we are here for, and to take care of the big problems that face our children and our parents and our elderly folks, the opioid addicts, and so on and so forth. This is a sideline, and let's vote no.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Carlson.
Madam Speaker, members, I just want to make a few comments, and I want to start by simply saying it's about time. I'm the only sitting member in this body who was here in 1973 when we voted to ratify the Federal Equal Rights Amendment. I sat right back in the seat there where Representative Schultz currently sits. And I remember a debate that was not too different than the debate that we're having here today. But with great pride, I can look back and say that this legislative body ratified the amendment. We were one of the early states to do it, but unfortunately, we never really nationally got over the top. And I just wanted to mention a little bit about my history and why I'm particularly interested in. I grew up in a household. I have one brother and 3 sisters. And my parents raised their 5 children with the idea that we were all equal. And if anybody would have ever challenged that my 3 sisters didn't have the same rights that the 2 sons had, they would have gotten an earful, believe me. That was the environment I grew up in. Well, I got married, and I was doing some coaching, and so my wife and I were teaching at the same location, Henry High School in North Minneapolis. So because I was tied up with some coaching, I said to Carol, I said that we needed to buy some furniture. We were newlyweds, and I said, well, why don't you go over to the local bank in Robbinsdale and take out a loan? Well, we were both beginning teachers. We both had a good credit rating. Our income was about the same. So she went over to the bank, and she came back a few minutes later, and I was coaching, or maybe an hour or so later. And I said, oh, did you get the loan? She said, no, you have to sign for it. About a month earlier, she would have gotten the loan on her own, but now she's married, so then her husband has to sign the loan. Well, that was the first time that I remember when we got married that there was really discrimination. I mentioned that I was coaching, and I picked up on what Representative Loeffler said about opportunity for young women. When I first started to teach back in 1964, a young woman at Henry High School would have had the opportunity to be on the front 5. That was where they waved the flags in front of the marching band, or they could be a cheerleader, and then they had a few intramural sports. And that was it for the young women. Today, and then I was going to say a young woman back in those days, if she had a leather jacket on or a leather sweater, it was probably her boyfriend's. Well, when I retired from teaching 34 years after that, if you saw a young woman in the classroom, that was her leather jacket, her leather sweater, with her own stripes and years of graduation and so on. That's how things had greatly improved. But I do remember in Minneapolis, one of the 3 sports that I coached was tennis. And so we had the opportunity at that point in time for young women to play on a tennis team. And I always had a non-conference match with St. Paul Humboldt every season. So the coach from St. Paul Humboldt comes over, and he said, I've got 4 young women on my team. He said, we're under a court order that because we don't provide a tennis opportunity for the young women, the court has said that the young women can be on the boys' team. So he said, but that doesn't cover Minneapolis, it's just for St. Paul. So he said, is there any problem if the girls play? And I said, absolutely not.
We each exchanged our lineup. After the match, you know what the reaction of my boy tennis team players was? Boy, they're good tennis players. My point is sometimes young people handle some of these issues much better than some of us adults. Well, going back to the family that I grew up in, where there was a lot of interest in everybody being treated equally, when I sat back there where Representative Schultz is sitting, at that point I had a young daughter. She was 2 years old. And when I hit that green button, I was hitting that for her, because I wanted her to have the same opportunities that my son, who was a newborn at that point, would have. And that's what this is all about, equal opportunity for men and women. And we're not there yet. And as I said at the beginning, it's about time. Representative Davney indicated 7 years ago. I'm talking about when I hit that green button 47 years ago. And that's what I mean, it's about time. Thank you.
The member from Scott, Representative Cantrell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise today in firm support of House File 13. I rise today to honor the brave and fearless women with whom I have the privilege to serve in this body with. I rise today to honor all the brave and fearless women who have come before me, who have raised me, who have made it possible for me to be here today. I want to honor a community member of mine and a dear friend who passed away in mid-January of this year, whose scarf I now wear as I proudly stand on the House floor to support the Equal Rights Amendment that she spent her entire life fighting for. It is because of her advocacy for the future that not only am I able to be here, but so many of my colleagues are able to be here as well. I rise to honor my grandmothers, Nadine and Connie, who in the late 60s were left to raise children by themselves. And need I remind anyone that the late 60s were not particularly a friendly time to single mothers. They had to fight for their prosperity. They had to fight to be afforded the full protection and opportunities of the law, often against great societal resistance and adversity. When my mother, Beth, was in high school, she was told that she was not worth going to college, that she should stay home, raise children. Well, I'm proud to say now that she holds an associate's degree and 2 bachelor's degrees, and now spends her days delivering babies in our community at St. Francis Hospital in Shakopee. We all know and love someone who has been disparaged and deprived of equity under the law and within our society on the basis of gender. It is time for us to not only definitively leave behind the inequities of the past, but to ensure for all Minnesotans, emphatically, that whereas yesterday was built with a brick and mortar of inequity and oppression, that the brick and mortar that will be used by people like my younger sister, Hannah, to build the future shall be that of equity and opportunity for all within our great state. We are at a crossroads, my friends, a historic juncture in the long course of our state's history. Today we have an opportunity to pose to the people of Minnesota the fundamental question of whether or not we as a state shall declare in one unified voice, codified in our sacred Constitution, that one's gender does not exclude them from enjoying the full protection of our laws, or be afforded full access to the wide breadth of opportunities our incredible state has to offer. I will be voting yes today, and should this question be on the ballot for the people of Minnesota to act upon, I will be voting yes then as well. I believe in the people of our state, and I believe in the wisdom of this legislature. I've heard a lot of concerns that are reminiscent of the concerns that we have heard echoed time and time again. Every time we have been asked the question, Shall all people be afforded equity and fair and equal treatment under the law every single time throughout the course of our history? But my friends, we must be so careful not to propagate the echoes of the past, because they need not define our future. Our future can be defined solely by our faith in all people, in all Minnesotans, and on the basis that every single human deserves to be treated with dignity in the eyes of the law and in our state. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hertas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's been a very good debate, and I've been listening to it all, and I'll be brief. As I've looked at the history of this piece of legislation, it is of concern to me that it is being used in the courts for a purpose. And while I can support many of the arguments made here today, including an issue that Representative Scott and I have worked on for the last many years, but the trial lawyers have been blocking the way, this pathway clearly will make that issue maybe one that'll be easy to resolve. But what I want to speak to is the O'Neill Amendment. And up until then, I had a more open mind about this. But all the cards were laid on the table. Some of my colleagues over there voted the correct way in my judgment and voted pro-life. Thank you for that. I won't call you out by name. But as a pro-life Catholic, I believe in life from conception till death, natural death. And I have to vote no on this because of the religious objection that I have. I have to speak for those who can't be here to vote. I have to speak for those yet unborn. And that's what troubles me most. I saw a beautiful little baby just leave the floor. So with that, I have to vote no on this bill. And I hope some of you who voted pro-life on that amendment will join me in a no. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I've had the honor of either authoring or co-authoring this legislation over the years, and I'm so happy to participate in history today, because this is finally on the House floor and on the verge of being passed. And I really want to thank especially Representative Kunesh-Podein for all of her incredible work in moving this forward. So today I'm thinking a lot about my late mother, who was a Polish-Jewish immigrant. And when she settled in Cincinnati, Ohio, my hometown in the 50s, she became one of the first women physicians at Cincinnati's Children's Hospital. And this morning, my wife and I were talking about her, and my wife remembers my mom telling her stories about how she had to try that much harder to be respected in her incredible work. And I think Representative O'Neill had mentioned this earlier, that so many of these pioneering women, like my mom, had to endure so much because it was new, it was unusual, it was different. And she went on to then direct a center for children with developmental disabilities. And then I'm thinking so much about my incredible wife, who many of you know oftentimes gives at least once per session an invocation here. And I'm always brimming with pride when she comes. She was the first woman rabbi in the city of Minneapolis. And that was 1988. That's pretty recent. And now she's the only rabbi in the world, actually, that has a congregation, that leads a congregation as large as our congregation, Temple Israel, an incredible feat. And she tells me stories about how she has to do it just a little differently, just a little harder than her peers, because of who she is. And then I think about my two daughters, Rebecca and Naomi, and they're inheriting this incredible legacy of their grandmother and their mother. And we've heard a lot about the progress. And I think it was very important what Representative Loeffler said, that that progress never would have happened if there wasn't a movement, if there weren't people in the streets making demands. But that progress isn't over. This is another step in that progress of justice, human rights, and equality that the women's movement has shown us over so many years, when we still have wage inequality, when we still have violence, when we still have discrimination. This sends a message that we're serious about that progress, about taking the next step, about finally doing what people have been waiting for us to do for so long. So I'm proudly casting a green vote in memory of my mother, in honor of my wife, and in the future generations that are looking to us for leadership. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we've talked appropriately so very much about women in the debate, but I'd like to direct my remarks to my fellow men in the chamber and beyond. And I think that you're aware I work outside the legislature as a prosecutor specializing in gender violence, which encompasses sexual violence, and I'll point out gender violence, a broader term, and I'm grateful to have that term gender in the amendment. Sexual violence, domestic violence, sexual exploitation, sex trafficking. And of course, at the heart of gender violence are gender inequities, power and control. We often say that when you think about domestic violence, sexual violence, we might think that it's about sexual violence about sex, sexual exploitation about sex. It's about power and control. It's the man who is in control in the relationship. Maybe he hardly lifts a finger. Maybe he's perfectly nice outside the home. But inside that home, he is the boss, and you dare not cross him. And we're talking about men who are buying sex. And again, doctors, lawyers, pastors, preachers, legislators, judges, folks from all walks of life, men from all walks of life, perfectly nice people, but they feel that they have the right and the power to control someone else in that way and to have this woman who is there for them. What fuels this? What gives men, our fellow men, this sense that they have the right to control someone else, the right of this superiority? And of course, it's socialization. It's the sense in society that women exist for the men around them, that is the purpose of women, the lesson that we get in society. So there's something called the Bechdel Test. I'm not sure if folks have heard of this. This is a test that you can apply to a work of art, a film, something else, and simply ask a question. Does it depict two women talking with one another about a topic other than a man? A very large percentage of our entertainment fails the Bechdel test. And there's a version of the Bechdel test that dates all the way back to 1929. So the ERA was first proposed in 1923. 6 years later, Virginia Woolf, in her essay, A Room of One's Own, was looking at fiction and exploring and said, I try to remember any case in the course of my reading where two women are represented as friends. Now, they're now and then shown as mothers and daughters, but almost without exception, they are shown in their relation to men. Strange to think that most of the great women of fiction were not only seen by the other sex, but seen only in relation to the other sex. And if she says, how small a part of women's life is that? There's a sense in society that women are somehow lesser. And I have to say, I was hearing the concern about men competing in women's sports. Think about the line that is used against boys. You throw like a girl. And what an insult that is, that you would possibly be competing as a girl. We're concerned that that is going to happen. So men, don't think that by opposing this, you are somehow standing up for women. You're protecting women from transgender people who themselves are the victims of great discrimination, have great vulnerabilities. No, by supporting this, you are standing up for equal partners. I would say we are standing up for ourselves. We are better off, men, when we have the equal partnership of the women around us who deserve to live their own full, dignified lives that may have nothing to do with the relationship with us. That is the right way to go, members. That is about equality under the law. It's a principle we all should stand up for. And Madam Speaker, I am proud to support this amendment. Thank you.
Any members other than the caucus leaders and the author of the bill wishing to be recognized? The member from Hennepin, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. I'm rising in opposition to this bill as a woman who has fought a lot of the fights we've talked about here today, as a daughter of a very strong woman. I come from a long line of strong Finnish women, so if you know anything about Finlanders, we're very strong, proud people. And I also am the mom of 3 daughters who I am raising to be strong women, and I am very proud of my girls. But this discussion today has been a challenge for me because I have shared some of the struggles you have all had. I also grew up with less sports opportunities than my daughters. And I was very thrilled when my daughters excelled in sports, and not having done any sports as a young woman, I don't know how they excelled, but they did. I had 2 captains of a soccer team, a captain of a basketball team who went to state for her very first time in our school's history last year. It's very exciting. And so I'm really grateful for the progress. I worked here 22 years ago when I was pregnant with my first daughter. And I have to say, being a pregnant woman at the Capitol was somewhat of an unusual situation 22 years ago, and I had a lot of comments and things that, you know, people found it unusual. I brought my daughter to hearings, and people were aghast, and so I'm delighted to see all the children at the Capitol and how much progress there's been made on that front. I was the only woman in my major as an economics major. I was the only woman in my graduate school program, an American woman. So I understand the perspective a lot of you have shared today, but my concerns about this bill do relate to the abortion language, the O'Neill Amendment, and the Scott Amendment on changing gender back to sex. And I just want to share briefly, because I know it's late, about that. First of all, you know, we've had this discussion. A lot of people have said that women are constantly told to move over, to wait. And I have had those experiences, but I feel like this is going to set back women in sports. And I know people have disparaged that today, but it's a real concern. My generation didn't have the opportunity for sports. My daughter's generation is the first generation where women's sports are equal to men. And honestly, yesterday, here in Minnesota, the 8th Circuit, as you may have heard, ruled that 2 boys in Minnesota high school who wanted to be on a dance team, the district court had ruled that that would not be allowed. And if you'll permit me, I will quote from Judge Paul Magnuson from the U.S. District Court, who denied the boys' petition in district court, saying that while the boys were harmed by the Minnesota State High School League ban, the damage caused to the high school league would be, quote, extensive, if not irreparable, in part because the league could fall out of Title IX compliance if they let the boys dance. Then the 8th Circuit yesterday overruled that, Judge Michael Milroy, and he said, the negative public consequences of such an allowance, if any, would be slight. And I disagree with that. And I think it will impact our daughters' ability to compete in high school and in college. And that that's something we have to take seriously. The gains I saw my daughters have over my life, I hope will not be rolled back for my grandchildren. And secondly, to the O'Neill Amendment on abortion, you know, that if really we're not going to use this as a weapon to increase abortions, then I think we should have just accepted that amendment, because at least, as you know, around the world, abortion is really used to target women, to kill female babies around the world. And I'm not saying that's here in Minnesota necessarily, but that's been the trend around the world. And I think if this is used to expand abortions, it could disproportionately affect women, and that the unborn should be, if we're going to be super broad and inclusive, we should include the unborn. So with great respect, members, I hope you will, because of those two things not being adopted, I hope you will not support this. Thank you.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Sauk.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker. I am going to invite you all into a personal window. Watching me over there in that camera is a set of daughters and granddaughters that I thought that as a grandparent or as a parent had tried to move mountains and open doorways and have them view into the future and see themselves on the other side and having all the opportunities that one might imagine. And I think I accomplished that. I've got two daughters that work professionally in a couple of pretty large institutions in the Rochester area, and they are very self-assured. On a good day, you know, when I'm feeling really, really strong about myself, it's clear to me that the world is equal, and they are equal to me. They are functioning at my equal. They are moving on through the world, and they are changing life and their companies in front of them. I've lived with one of those ladies since 71, and so I'm getting very used to that feeling. And now I've got 5 granddaughters and a grandson. Grandson was recently at his school teacher conferences, that's what it was. So anyway, what did the teacher say about him? Oh, he does really good, he's not accomplishing all of his stuff, but he's particularly kind. From a grandfather who knows that family functions in athletics. For the teacher to have noted that he was particularly kind underlined to me that my daughter was a very strong woman and showed him the value of kindness, and that he has adopted that in his life. Some would call it a feminine characteristic. I call it wonderful modeling by his mother. But the one that's watching up there right now that's particularly important to me is my youngest granddaughter, who today is 1 year old. So this is this is a birthday gift for a 1-year-old girl who will open doors, and we will have opened them for her. Thank you very much.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wasn't sure if I was going to speak today. I didn't plan to, but felt moved to. My mother passed away 4 days before I was sworn in. She was a true feminist, and she went to the University of Kansas, attended college there. She wanted with all her heart to be a geology major, and she was told when she talked to the professors that women didn't become geology majors. So she became a Spanish major instead, and she went out and became an accountant. She worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and when she started at PricewaterhouseCoopers, there were 4 women who were associates, who were partners at a company with over 1,000 partners. She wound up leaving PricewaterhouseCoopers to come take care of me because they wouldn't give her leave as a mother. There's been a lot of talk about the progress that's been made. There has been a lot of progress made, but women still are only 29% of the science and engineering workforce. And the status from July, 42% of women say they experienced gender discrimination at work. That was last year. So we have made progress, but we haven't made enough. So I'm voting yes for my mother.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It was an honor to hear this bill in the Government Operations Committee early in the session. It was the first time, probably since Representative Carlson first heard the original Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It was the first time it had been heard in the Minnesota House of Representatives in a long time. I heard 40 years, I think. I don't remember if that's correct exactly. And I have a daughter who's 9. I've brought her here several times. Several of you have met her. She's actually, for a 9-year-old, surprisingly interested in what we do here at the legislature. So I like to tell her some of the things we're working on, and that was, I'm a new chair this year. The Equal Rights Amendment was I felt like my first really big bill, my first test. I was kind of stressed out about it and how it would go. So I think she could tell I was stressed. I told her a little bit about it and what it would do and why it was important. I told her, a little bit about. She's like, well, aren't women equal? Like, why do we need that in law? I said, well, there still are problems. I told her a little bit about the pay differential and that sort of thing. So she definitely seemed supportive of the Equal Rights Amendment. So thank you, Representative Kunesh-Podein, for carrying it. I know Rose appreciates it too. We were talking about some other bills. Later, I mentioned some of the funny ones. I mentioned that there was a bill introduced to designate the Labrador Retriever as the state dog. And she asked, well, maybe we need a state cat too. We have a kind of obscure breed of cat called a Nibelung. So then another week or so passes, and then she has an assignment in one of her classes where they're learning about the government. And she, just because of what I do, she probably mentions some more unusual things than maybe some of her classmates. But they had to talk about a couple laws they wanted changed. So one of them was to designate the Nibelung as the state cat, and the other one was to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. So you have a strong supporter in the Freiberg household. You have many strong supporters. Every member of the Freiberg household, Representative Kunesh-Podein, is a strong supporter of this bill. But I'm thinking particularly of my 9-year-old daughter when I vote for it. So I'm honored to be voting in favor of this historic amendment.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Noor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tonight, I rise for my 2 daughters, Jana and Jamila. I rise for my wife, my mom, my sisters. I rise because we can do better than the 7 countries that have not ratified equality under the law. Somalia is one of them. Iran, Palau, South Sudan, Tonga. Members, equality is a basic human right. I do believe giving women the right of equality under the law will not harm anybody. I do believe we can stand together to do better for all of us. You see, when my mom wasn't given her rights, when my wife and my sisters were not given rights, and coming here to see that they do not have equality, coming here to start discussing about equality today, I feel ashamed. Members, we can do better. This is about social justice for everyone. We cannot let things that divide us conquer us. We should all be united to stand together tonight and vote green. And I urge you all to do the same. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, we've had a lot of very compelling and moving discussions about equality, and I can tell you I agreed with every one of them. But members, that's not the bill before us. If we would have adopted Representative Scott's amendment, I suspect it might be a unanimous vote on this bill. And the discussion on the floor by nearly everybody that I've heard since the amendments have been done has been about equality between men and women, about the sex of the individual. Representative Scott's amendment. But Democrats, you voted against that. To preserve instead in the bill the language on gender, which still doesn't have a definition, a description, anything rooted in law to tell us what it is. We have lists of 112 of them that appear to be more about sexual behavior than whether they're man or a woman. So members in the majority, I think you are making very good arguments, but they're targeted at a bill that doesn't exist before us today. Instead, we have a bill that is brought together by what appears to be a special interest group. I was in a hearing and talking with Representative Kanish Padin as she presented her bill, and I saw past Representative May Quaid in the audience, and she was coaching her from a distance. And so I looked up and looked. Today, Representative May Quaid works for an organization called Gender Justice. And by the way, they've got the same buttons on them on their website that I see on many members going around the House floor here tonight. And on their 990 form that nonprofit organizations have to file, a significant portion of their income is under their litigation program. Gender justice lawyers represent individuals or classes of people in targeted lawsuits designed to correct gender injustice and bring about systemic change. So no doubt, including the word gender in the bill, which again is not the target of the discussion here today, instead gives rise to the ability for organizations like this one to bring lawsuits that we don't even know yet what they're about because we don't fully understand the definitions of gender in front of us. Not a single member that I asked to yield today knew about the definitions of gender, the 112 of them here that I have before me. So we hear the discussion quickly about let Minnesota decide. And this is about equality, and this is about fairness. And again, that's not what the bill is that's before us. We're putting forward a proposal that the people of Minnesota will not understand. We're putting forward a proposal that the body here has been collectively talking about for the last 2 hours, that they didn't hit the target on their debate because they were talking about something else. We're putting together a proposal that has no definition. And when we do that, and we put that in front of the voters of Minnesota, it turns into a deceptive measure for them. Members, let's not deceive Minnesotans because they won't know what this is. Let's be responsible. Let's vote no. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Chisago, Representative New.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm really disheartened tonight. I was really looking forward to coming here today and voting in favor of this amendment. I told my caucus that yesterday, that I would be supporting this amendment. There have been a lot of really moving speeches given by the members of this body. Representative Halverson talked about the many women who have been left behind, and I agree. Representative Moran talked about the wage gap for women, and especially women of color, and I agree. Representative Bonner added her own experience, making far less than her male counterpart. Representative Considine and Representative Carlson talked about some pretty archaic laws discriminating against women. Representative Stevenson talked about the many women who have been victims of violent crime. Representative Loeffler talked about the fact that women have always been asked to wait. And perhaps that's most apparent when we look at decision makers. In our body here, 31.8% of us are women. And we're actually doing really well. Minnesota does pretty well in our representation by women in this state. In Congress right now, in the Year of the Woman, it's 23.7% of Congress is made up of women. Representative Bonner talked a little about the women being underrepresented in government, and I agree. We should be outraged by this. I spend a lot of my personal time serving on a board to develop women leaders, to serve in our communities, in our government. We need women's voices at the table. We need women to be decision makers. But right here in the halls of our own Capitol, women have been left behind. In the halls of our Capitol in Washington, D.C., in the halls of our city and county governments, women have been left behind. As so many of us today have pointed out, women have been left behind. And I was really looking forward to coming here today to vote to lift women. But that's not what this is about. I am so disheartened by the discussions that we've had on the amendments today. We had some very simple amendments offered. One that would just define gender. One that would even define gender as what is listed on a birth certificate. That can be changed. If people feel the need to do that, they can do that. But we've been unwilling to define this for some reason. I cannot wrap my head around this. But with no definition of gender, this is meaningless. We're not lifting women. This does nothing to benefit the very women we are trying to lift with this bill. We were told in committee that the ERA would have no impact on abortion. Thank you, Representative O'Neill, for bringing forward an amendment to codify that and make sure that this ERA amendment is simply neutral on abortion. It does not encourage, it does not discourage. And Representative O'Neill gave very clear evidence that this ERA amendment in other states has been used for that very purpose. I'm so disheartened that we were unwilling to simply say that this amendment would be neutral on abortion. Representative Davney mentioned fear, that somehow we are afraid to support this. Madam Speaker and members and Representative Davney, I assure you there are very few things that I fear. I am a woman who has borne 5 children. I am a woman who has run organizations. I am a woman who, when I was asked to wait, chose to say, no, I will run, and I got elected to this body. And I am so grateful to be here and to be among the 33% of us as women who get to be decision makers for our great state of Minnesota. I am a woman who has buried my husband. I am a woman who is raising those 5 children alone. I shouldn't say that. I am not raising those children alone. I am raising those children with the help of my incredible tribe of amazing women who do this with me. Representative Dabney, I assure you that I do not fear, but I will fight. I will fight with everything I have to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Madam Speaker and members, we are doing nothing with this vote today to lift women. And members, I encourage a no vote.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members, both DFL and GOP, for the impassioned, emotional, and respectful debate today. It is clear, after listening to everyone here, that we have differences of opinion about what this amendment will do. I take very seriously, and I trust implicitly the sincerity of all of us speaking on behalf of equality. We all say the right words, and I do believe in our hearts we believe in equal treatment between men and women. But our history shows that those feelings and those thoughts and those words do not mean very much without the law behind them. The 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says that all people, it doesn't say men, it says all people are entitled, or all persons are entitled to equal treatment of the laws. For 100 years, those words meant nothing in our country. In 1964, after a long struggle, the Civil Rights Act was passed. In an effort to defeat the Civil Rights Act, an amendment was adopted to insert the word sex into the amendment. Because what could be more ridiculous than the notion of equal treatment between men and women? That was at a time, a high point, a high tide of equality in our country, as far as our legislative initiatives went. Equal treatment on the basis of sex or gender, or whatever word we choose to use, we all know that it means roughly the same thing. They are just about synonyms. The word is not a Trojan horse for unequal treatment or for an agenda related to transgender rights. It is not a Trojan horse about anything. It is an attempt to treat people equally. And without a law to do so, those words, those sentiments, don't protect people. People need to have recourse. So currently, under federal law, which is done by statute, not in the Constitution, equal treatment by sex is the law of the land. Equal treatment in Minnesota is the law of the land by statute. It is not in our Constitution. And we have had powerful and important points made today about equal treatment of women, about wage inequality, sexual violence, workplace discrimination. We haven't mentioned sexual harassment. We haven't mentioned paid family and medical leave or earned sick and safe time. Those are all vital issues that will improve the livelihoods, the security, and the standing of women in our society. We will be taking those bills up this session. We will take up missing and murdered Indigenous women. We have taken up already marital rape. We have taken up already child marriage. All people in Minnesota, regardless of their gender or regardless of their sex, deserve equal treatment. All deserve the opportunity to succeed regardless of their gender or their sex. Without putting this in our Constitution, members, we do not have equal treatment as the supreme law of this land. We have seen that what is given and the progress that we have made can come back. In many ways, in the course of our human experience, the notion of equality is radical. It is a radical notion in our history to treat men and women equally. It is not a guarantee. It cannot be assumed. 30 years or 40 years of progress is not any guarantee that it will continue, and that is why it is essential that it be part of Minnesota's Constitution. We have concerns about abortion, and we have concerns about what the word gender might mean. But those concerns are small in comparison to the importance of the blinding, blazing, bright word of equality that we need to put in Minnesota's Constitution. So members, it is fine to talk a good game, and it is fine to believe in our hearts that this is important, and many, many people here have struggled far more than I have. But for the sake of all of us, we want to be a state that puts equality in bright green letters in our Constitution. And so members, I would please ask you to vote green today.
The author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Kunesh Pudin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker, and thank you, members, for sharing your thoughts and your ideas here this evening. This is a day when I see people walking around with signs on, little pins on their lapel that says, "History matters." History really does matter. And when we look at history, and just as Representative Halverson said, look at who was left out. When Representative New talks about the importance of making sure that women are represented, who is she leaving out? We can all talk about women in our lives who have worked hard. My great aunt was the first chair of the Standing Rock tribe, the one and only. That woman hitchhiked back and forth between her reservation and Washington, D.C. numerous times, fighting for the rights of her people, her tribe. That is the legacy I carry. I grew up in a large family. I grew up in a family of 13, and you want to talk about Catholic? You have not seen a Catholic family like my family. I went to an elementary school that was Catholic. I went to a high school that was Catholic. I graduated from a Catholic college. My children went to parochial schools. I understand the issue around abortion. I understand MCCL because I grew up with that. But I also understand what's important in life. I first want to thank a few people. I'd like to thank former Representative Betty Folliard. Betty asked me last year if we're going to talk about my motivation. Last year, I was invited to carry this bill, and I did. Did we hear it last year? No. Did I get a hearing on it? No. Was there any conversation about it? No. What did it take? It took a whole new crew of Democrats to bring us into the majority so we could have this conversation here tonight. And for that, I want to thank you. I also want to thank these other women standing here behind me. Kathleen Murphy was one of the first women that testified for the ERA 10 or more years ago, 2001. And look at, we're still here doing this. We need to move on, folks. One of the things that Representative Folliard pointed out to me are those words up there. If you look up there, it might be kind of hard to see those words, so they looked familiar to me, and I went ahead and I Googled them again so that I could get a full understanding of what those words are. And it says, "We hold these truths to be evident, to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That's how this state put those words up there in gold leaf. And again, they left out the women. The women that bore every single one of us. My mother bore 13 children. I have 7 brothers and 5 sisters. You want to talk a little bit about inequity? Growing up, who was the one that had to stay home and help with the babies and the kids while my brothers went out and played sports? Who were the ones that got to get their driver's license and get jobs and be gone from the house while the girls were the ones that were home? And I'm not bitter, because I love every single one of my brothers and sisters so fiercely you can't even imagine. And to this day, we are so, so very tight. I don't begrudge what my brothers had that I didn't have, because we sisters grew up really strong. And my brothers appreciate that. And we appreciate them. And that's what this is all about, appreciating each other. When we all say we're doing this for our mothers, our sisters, all those important people in our life, you know who I want to do this for? I want to do this for one of my students. I teach in a middle school. And one of the joys of being a teacher is that you get to see kids grow. You get to see kids develop. You get to see their personalities shine through, or sometimes they're hidden, or you get a glimpse of something that's just so unique, it warms your heart. And I think of this one young person who was one of the kindest young boys when I met him. He was funny, he was entertaining, he was bright. And then things sort of started to change for him. And he started to realize that maybe he just wasn't that comfortable being a boy. Maybe he just wasn't that comfortable playing that macho, tough boy kind of thing. Maybe he didn't really want to play basketball. Maybe he wanted to dance. And why is that so wrong? If we say that we are the nucleus of the genesis of the Bible, well, who made us? Did that person, whether it was a man or a woman, make us perfect? Did they make us one identifying gender? Who got to decide that? Which one of you gets to decide how we self-identify? And whose business is it? What we decide is our sexual gender or our self-identifying gender. It is none of your business. I don't need to carry around a birth certificate to say how I self-identify. I identify as me, you identify as you, and we are all equal. Equal under the law. So that we have the same benefits of a good life. We all have access to good health care. We can all go to schools and universities and become the person that we want to be. What does it matter what my gender is? Does it matter? Do we have to check a doctor's gender to see if they can perform an operation? Can we only let certain genders be teachers or state representatives? Look across the nation and see how many folks who identify as transgender are now in those roles of bringing their uniqueness, their lens of what democracy looks like for all of us. And when people want to sit here and bicker about a word like gender, when you all know what it is, and you don't think Minnesotans can't figure that out, I just want to say, give me a break. And I hope Minnesota does too. This bill is about giving Minnesotans the opportunity to choose a few words that will give all of us equal footing under law. That's what this is about. There's no hidden agendas. I'm not trying to bring anybody that used to be here in the legislature back in and influence me. I'm a pretty bright person. This is about letting Minnesotans make those choices that we all fight for every single day here at the legislature. Local choice. Let them decide themselves. I'm so tired of overreach. Well, here's your opportunity. Here's your opportunity to put those words onto a ballot in 2020 and let Minnesota vote for what they think is important. Equity under the law shall not be abridged or denied according to gender. I ask every one of you here, and it's going to light up that board, and the entire state of Minnesota is going to see who you represent. Everyone in Minnesota, or just certain people that fall under your definition of gender? I ask you all to vote green.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 72 ayes and 55 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.